G'day and welcome back to Ranneko Plays Torment Tides of Ranmenera, also known as Torment Tides of Ranmenera. Okay, so last time round we had a look at this hut. We chatted with Eoxu, who is intent on studying the bloom, and I can't say I disagree with that approach. We also talked to Sunderman and Sunderman, the guy who is mentoring himself, and we've still got more to talk to, so let's start with Inkpot. This man is tall and gawkily thin. His wiry hair looks like an explosion of metal springs atop his head. He regards you with bright, feverish eyes that seem too large for their sockets and smiles. Even as he motions you closer, the man is scribbling words on a scrap of paper. He has fastened some sort of harness around his body. It holds a tiny writing tablet and inkwell, so he can continue to write as he moves about. Dozens of scroll-covered notes are stuck to his leathery robes. There is one holder. Aid the Devourer. I've heard rumors of one fitting your description, one who helps those in need. Help us, sister, he intones in a wet, breathy voice. We are extremities of the great Devourer. We beseech your aid to right a great wrong. Extremities of the great Devourer? Bloom cultist. Fancy name doesn't make him any less crazy. You walk in the company of a heretic, I see. The awkward-looking man peers at McKean and then scribbles furiously on his paper. But heresy has a rooted fear that chokes the ears and drowns out the voices of the great Devourer. We do not hate the heretic, we pity her. The White One corrupts her. No matter, the wise will see of reason. We are those who venerate the bloom as divine, and seek to become a part of it as if it will have us. We are the only ones who can see that a great wrong has been done here. What sort of wrong? A terrible torment visited upon the bloom, our god. It is the work of Eoxu, the measurer and meddler, who dwells in that nodule of flesh. He raises his pen towards a house that sits on the other side of the platform, red and stinking and inflamed.
Making a note.
Eoxu desires to understand the bloom, to quantify its impulses. This causes pain to our god. His eyes bulge even wider, and it occurs to you that you haven't once seen him blink. The evidence is all clear for all to see in the raw and swollen flesh of Eoxu's house. We have warned Eoxu to stop his pokings and proddings and measurings, but he will not listen. What methods are left to us? He lets a question hang in the air, an unspoken threat. Perhaps you can help him change his mind. Very well, I'll have a talk with Eoxu. I can try to work out a compromise, at least. The word compromise, his mouth twitches. Try, if you like, but blasphemers are loath to compromise. They are steeped in sin. His face brightens, and he pulls a handful of scribbled papers from a pocket and shoves them in your hands. Scriptures of the great Devourer to inspire your thoughts and guide your words. From the pen of Inkpot, who is me? His handful of crumbled paper is covered with messy scroll. They are purported to be part of the canon of the Bloom cult. They seem little more than the incoherent ramblings of their author, a cultist named Inkpot. Most of the pages are covered with grimy fingerprints and thick, dried splotches of yellow phlegm. Delightful. If the Bloom is really a god, why does it need human help at all? The need is plain. Can you not see upon the swollen flesh of that house and tell me a poison does not fester inside? She dares? No, she simply does not understand. Did the bloom ask for your help? It spoke to me of its need. I heard its voice in my mind. It does not need to speak, for the faithful see, but this one needs stronger faith. Okay, let me just double check something. So no. Items. I'm just trying to think, am I better at deception or intimidation? Let's go with deception. Is anyone better? Oh wow, look at that. Makina is just like the worst. So the base difficulty is in fact minus 50%. Well, we're very good at lying. Your brazen self-assurance, even though it isn't real, is enough to shake the confidence of the cultists. They exchange worried looks.
Making a note.
Yeah, sorry, I should have said this. It does not need to speak. Sorry. You're wrong. The bloom spoke to me about Ioksu. It doesn't want your help at all. Right, yes. I may have misunderstood the Devourer's intent. Perhaps I should wait. Consult the scriptures. Best not to act rashly where gods are concerned. What are all those papers on your robes? Scriptures of the great Devourer. They're ever-changing, in imitation of the bloom, you see. He tears at one of the scribbled papers from his robe, crumples it up, and tosses it over the side of the platform. Those words are forgotten. Gone. But new ones can be added as we like. He takes a scroll of paper from the little writing desk that's strapped to his body, spits a wad of yellow phlegm onto its back, and sticks it to his robe. Now these words are part of the canon. Can you tell me about your beliefs? I will not speak of beliefs. I will only tell you what is true. First, the bloom is a god, the only true god, and all that takes place within its body is solid and real. That which exists outside the bloom is an illusion, a cruel trick, a falsehood. Second, that our goal is to become one with the bloom, to transform ourselves into living embodiments of its will, and one day to be called to its heart. And what do you why do you want to be called to that? What does that even mean? When it wants us, the bloom will open a moor at our feet, or reveal a tunnel where one hadn't been before. The passage will close behind us, and we will never be seen again by human eyes. But we will follow the turnings of its hearts, and be one with the Devourer at last, and pray to no one ever again. What do you think of the Memavira? When her will was one with the blooms, we revered her, but no more. She is no Memavira. Not anymore. Not to us. Another will be found, in time. Her time is done. Soon the bloom will take her as well. You think the ninth world is an illusion? I know it is. The people of that world try to tell you that life is not pain. They weave illusions and call them laws to protect the weak and the poor, the ugly, the malformed. But look closer, you'll see they lie. He spits a gob of yellow phlegm off the side of the platform. Only here, in the bloom, is the horror of life revealed without pretense. Becoming one with the bloom is our only hope of salvation. And how do you plan to do that? We clothe ourselves in its flesh, feast on its bile and viscera. If we are lucky enough to hear its voices, we empty our mind and let it govern our actions and thoughts. The Devourer will only call us to its heart when its will is one with ours. One day I will hear the bloom's voice clearly, not these vague whispers. I must not doubt. Oh, to be as tired as you are in the living flesh of the Devourer! What joy it must be! What rapture! Let's talk about something else. Something else? Is it safe to drink from that water? Better than safe. Those fluids are the holy secretions of the great Devourer. To drink of them is to put your mind in communion with the bloom. He leans closer to you, and your eyes are drawn to the profusion of festering sores in his mouth. You can listen to its voice and know what it wants, for a time at least. Oh, that's fun.
Let's go.
But I think we may have short-circuited that quest, as it were. So let's chat and see. Ioksu? You disturb me again. What a great matter calls for your interruption. The bloom cultists have agreed to leave you alone. Doubts rise within. Extraordinary claims demand proof. He steps to the door and peers outside. They had regarded this home and Ioksu, but their clamor ended. Tight smiles color their faces, but no longer do they hurl imprecations. My gratitude, I believe, is in order. Accept this. No, let no doubt stand. Encephalon is subjugating revivification. Okay, let's have a look-see at that. Nanospirits revive the muscles of a humanoid corpse to fight by your side. This undulating mass of metallic tendrils resembles nothing so much. Oh, yeesh. As a sea flower sculpted from woven steel, parting the wriggling metal ropes, reveals the nucleus, a knotted metallic brain whose every fissure plates pulses with faint green light. When placed in close proximity to an intact corpse, The object's tendrils will burrow deep into the recesses of the dead being's body. Within moments, the encephalon will be completely subsumed into the host, who will arise a mindless thrall awaiting purpose. Once a farmer discovered a host of similar objects, prying them from the fossilized carapaces of beings from antiquity. Supposing them to be seeds, he planted them near the family's burying plots. After recovering from the shock of seeing his ancestors rise from the grave, he made best of his situation and put them to work tending the fields. The farmer took ill and ultimately passed. His family, it is said, can be seen ceaselessly toiling to harvest his long barren lands to this day. That is cool and terrible at the same time. I love it. Okay, that's that then.
All right.
Quest solved. So we got one more building to check out in this area. And it's the statue of the lady. And then I guess we will head either north or south. Let's go to the Shrine of Chila. Oh, she was the one that led the slave uprising in Sega's Cliffs. So that's going to be interesting to see. There's also those people down there on the way to Little Nihlesh, which I think is where we need to go next. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's something we have to do before we can do that. Bloom cultists, the Chronicles of Chila is great.
Walk ahead of me, Eratus.
You wish me to lead this fine band? My pleasure.
No. Your glow is making it hard for me to find the shadows. It'll improve the view, too.
Oh, saucy. Okay, let's start with looking at whatever's in the center here. A slab of pitted stone sits in the center of the shrine, heaped with motley display of offerings. Judging by the accumulated dust and filth, it's been here for decades or longer. Let's have a look at the offerings. The objects on the slab are a bizarre mixture of trophies left by visitors to the shrine. Many of the offerings appear to be food of the mostly ghastly nature. Candied eyeballs, amputated fingers and claws, and little cakes and pies. Puddings made from other unidentifiable organs. Probably all harvested from vanquished foes. You also see broken weapons, severed limbs, and a scattering of silver items. Little pots, cutlery, buttons, and other discarded scraps of the metal. People have obviously been leaving their offerings here for some time. Everything is a jumbled mess. Your sharp eyes catch sight of tiny bloom tendrils that snake along the surface of the slab, attaching themselves to the offerings. They writhe and undulate as if feeding upon them, yet the offerings bear no physical signs they've been touched. Okay, interesting. So, I mean, clearly they've been picked up. Let's chat with this Observant Speck. In a shadowy corner of the shrine lurks an old woman, so tiny and unremarkable she blends right into the gloom. She's been watching you since you arrived, following you with bright, intense eyes. You notice one of her arms is missing at the elbow. She's here. Greetings. The whispers told me you were coming, cast off. They often do when someone they regard as interesting finds their way to the bloom. Her voice is soft and shifting, as if everything she says is echoed by the chittering voices of the bloom. Suddenly she's at your side, one small hand touching your arm, her eyes probe yours. Did you come here with a purpose? Do you know what this place is? You realize this shrine does feel familiar, as if you, or perhaps the changing god, has been here. So let's try to remember. Okay, so yep, it's a difficult check, but not that difficult. And, you know, might as well. You scan the room, searching for anything that might seem familiar. A metallic gleam catches your eyes from the nearby slab of stone. It lies partially buried beneath a motley pile of offerings, but the unusual shape of the metal sparks a memory. The old woman follows your gaze. He left that as an offering, yes, I did when he was here. You can almost feel the weight of the device in your hand. With a sudden, jarring clarity, you see the chamber as it was 40 years past, when the changing god stood before a group of robed bloom cultists, offering the device in trade for information. And in the corner, an elderly woman, bird-like, with shining eyes. The woman you've just met, or someone much like her, was at the shrine then too. He poured of every scroll, she whispers half to herself, wanting to learn how Sheila forged a friendship with the bloom. A bond that imposed no price upon her, or so he thought. And now you are here in the shrine of Sheila the Great, Sheila Silverskin, Sheila the Bride of the Hammer, and I am her observant Speck. So when he was here, what did he want from the bloom? To create a portal to another world, a place called the Ascension. He believed the crystals of that world would save him from death. So he descended to the bloom's heart and forged a bond of sorts. From that bond a new Moor was born. He took your sire to the world he sought. But for every bond, the bloom always exacts a price. If it could not feast upon your sire, then it will find a way to devour one of his offspring, more than one, perhaps. What can you tell me about Sheila? Stories pass from one speck to the next. So many stories, told by so many tongues, too many to hold in my head, but the bloom remembers them, and it whispers to me in my ears to remind me. So where did Sheila come from? Speck closes her eyes and cocks her head, like a bird's, as if listening to the voices of the bloom. As she begins to speak, the faint chitters and whispers that always underlie her words grow louder, twisting them around your head and spawning images in your mind eyes. Speak to me, whispers. Tell me again about Sheila. Look up, high on the cliffs, a sturdy little house. The cliffs of Sagas flash before your eyes, crowded with old ramshackle homes. They cling to the rocks like spindly crabs high above the sea. One of them catches your eyes, a pretty little house, freshly painted blue and green, in a solid nook of stone. A man and a woman dwell inside, a father and mother. 2 children they have, a girl and a boy. Now you can see the people too. The girl is tall for her age, robust and strong. Her brother is small, cautious, and quick. Keep listening. One day the father pulls a treasure from the sea. You can see the man in a fishing boat, holding a silvery cylinder out of his net, looking at it in wonder. He brings it home to his family. What shall I do with this artifact? He wonders, for I am a simple man and not a wizard or a sage. The man glances out of the window of his house and sees his 2 children playing in the street. Artifacts bring trouble, he says to himself, and I have a family to protect. I'll bring this treasure to the next boss of the town, and she will thank me for it. So the next day the man gathers the treasure in a sack and sets out from the manor at the top of the cliff. His daughter Sheila wants to go with him, but he shakes his head and goes alone. Keep listening. Many weeks pass. The man never returns from the manor on the hill. Sheila asks everyone she knows, but no one has seen her father. One day, just as she and her brother leave the house in the morning, they hear a crash behind them. In your mind's eye, you see a pretty little house pulling away from the cliff, its wooden supports snapping like twigs, bursting apart as it falls towards the sea. It strikes you as strange that this house, seemingly kept much better than its neighbours, should collapse so suddenly. The children race back along the roads to find that their house is gone, and their mother lies dead among the rocks. As her brother curls up in the street and weeps, Sheila stands beside him, gazing toward the manor on the top of the hill. I know who did this, she whispers, and I know what you did to my father. The treasure you took from him is my birthright, and I will have it back. That's what drove her? Vengeance? Not vengeance. A desire to be extraordinary. The Speck's voice was quiet again, the whispers receded, and he sensed these words are truly her own. Sheila believed that her parents were easy victims because no one knew who they were. If they had been prominent and well known, the boss of Sagas would not have dared to harm them. But they were small and simple folk, so no one cared when they died. For what else matters but to be known? The changing god also knew this. Tell me how she found her way to the bloom. Once again, the Speck cocks her head and closes her eyes and listens to the bloom speak to her as well, the cast-off, show her the truth of the past. Look up, 2 orphans climb the cliffs towards manor high above. It belongs to a woman, the boss of Sagas and the mistress of the bloom, she who killed their parents and took their birthright for herself. The girl is Sheila, tall, broad-shouldered, and flamboyantly dressed, like a glittering gem against the dull stone of the cliffs. The boy is her brother Shade, slender and quick, cowled in black. Through the unguarded window they climb, slipping into the garden beyond. There, at its heart, is the artifact, their birthright. In your mind's eye, Sheila and Shade crouch on a leg. You can see the artifact they must have, a metallic cylinder fitted into a strange device. She leans forward, so eager to see what is rightfully hers, but the ground turns slick, and she almost falls, toppling into the garden. Close enough to the artifact she can almost reach it, but she's snared in a net of rainbow light. You can see Sheila crumpled under a strange net, trapped, calling for her brother. Shade watches from the shadows. He makes no move to help. Betrayed, led into a trap by her twin, but if she couldn't have the artifact, at least she could touch. The Speck's voice changes, and as she does so, you can feel Sheila straining, reaching up a hand through the net. As her finger brushes the artifact, it flares with brilliant light, and it's gone. But not gone, not really. It's part of Sheila now, changing her slowly from within. She can sense the change, but she doesn't know what it means, not yet, not as they lead her away. She's cast into the bloom as a slave, and there she meets me. But it wasn't really you, right? No, not me. It was another woman they called a Speck. My name's Speck, an insignificant speck. That's who she was back then. And what did you do to get such respect? In the dark, in the bleeding guts of the bloom, a score of young women crouch in a cell carved from the living flesh of the bloom. You can barely see the girls in your mind's eye. Thin and tired, huddled against the fleshy walls, bound in chains. Who they were before doesn't matter. They're slaves now, doomed to labor in the dark. One day, someone new is brought to their cell and is chained beside a small girl who calls herself the Speck. The new girl says her name is Sheila. Even in chains, she meets the guard's eyes, and they look away. Already the bloom whispers in her ears. Sheila places her hands upon its flesh and strikes a bargain. You owe us, Sheila whispered to the bloom, for the slaves you've eaten, for the Speck's arm that you devoured. You owe us something in return. The flesh trembles beneath her hand and opens. A chamber beyond is a chamber full of weapons. You catch a glimpse of Sheila passing blades and stranger armaments to the other girls in her cell. Sheila picks a glowing hammer for herself, or maybe the bloom does. It fits her like it was made from her, and it never leaves her side ever again. Then we gather together and make our plan to escape. When all of us are ready, Sheila starts hammering on the door to our cell. The guards come running, and we fall upon them, cutting them down, tearing them apart. Then Sheila leads us from our prison, and we pour into the market, gathering more and more slaves to her banner. We kill every master we can find. In the market, we decide to make our stand. Sheila knows that her enemy, the boss of Sagas, the woman who killed her parents and turned her brother against us, can't ignore us. We formed up into ragged lines, then we hear them, the roar of the soldiers, the tread of the heavy boots getting closer, closer. Somehow you can hear them too, along with the terrified murmurs of the slaves as they grip their weapons, prepare to fight for their lives. Noise, confusion. The Speck's eyes are still closed, but she staggers back, raising a hand to defend herself against an invisible attack, as if she thinks she's in the midst of a battle. You can faintly hear the screams and cries, the clanks of steel on steel. I stay by Sheila's side first. When the battle is joined, I try to guard her back, but she's struck first by an arrow, then a blade. Whenever they cut her flesh, silver scales grow over the wound, and she keeps fighting. Sheila knows why. When she touched the artifact, her birthright, it became part of her, changed her so she cannot be killed. She smiles, raises her hammer, and crushes the skull of every soldier who stands against her. A shadow passes overhead. It's her traitorous brother, Shade, soaring on wings of flesh and steel, come to kill her at last. He strikes her once, twice, and again. Each time the silver scales grow to cover the wound. Instead of getting weaker, Sheila grows stronger. She grabs him by the foot and smashes him into the ground. But instead of killing him, she speaks to him. It's a whisper, and I couldn't hear what she said. But Shade begins to weep. When she lets him go, he stays on the ground. The battle is won, and the enemy soldiers are running. Sheila goes to face the one who killed her parents. I leave you with your life, she says, but not your name. Get out of here and never come back. You can almost see the broken woman, a feared warlord in the hours before, fleeing alone and in shame from battle. That's where our story ends. Our enemy fled, and the bloom was ours. Sega's Cliffs was ours. Sheila became the first Memavira. We ended the trade in slaves, and Sheila ruled Segas and all the lands around for half a century, until the bloom called her to its heart. What happened to Sheila's enemy? She was forgotten. Some of the slaves said that they followed her, thinking to kill her despite Sheila's promise of safe passage. But before they had a chance, she vanished. She escaped to another world, or was perhaps eaten by the bloom. I prefer to think the latter. You keep saying we as if you were there. I see the memories as if I were there too. I was her. As if I was her, the first Speck. But I couldn't have been there. It was too long ago. Duh. Call it a heart. It's probably the same thing that we've been told by other people. Maybe she'll return for a Speck, or at least one Speck. So she's kind of the King Arthur of this story. Sheila ended this trade in slaves, but now it's returned. In different forms, but yeah, sure, nothing really there. And other questions. Met a man who claims to be the former Memavira. So he was. Totally true. Love the power. Why is the bloom turn on people? Because it always does. And that's that. The physical pain was nothing to him, losing his name and all that he built being forgotten. Now that was terrible. It's all a cycle, round and round. Feast on one Memavira, raise another in its place. Let the hunger build, and feast again. So now the bloom wants to do that, and she's hiding. Too scared to leave her tower, too proud and stubborn to abandon the bloom. She's no different than the ones who preceded her. The bloom will eat her, and her name will be forgotten. So, if Sheila was part of the first Memavira, wouldn't she have been part of the feeding cycle too? The Speck turns to your eyes glittering. What are you saying? This is not the first. I think she's discovered some great secret. Let's go with... She's proof it can be beaten, right? Because if you're strong enough, you probably won't get eaten. A wrestle, didn't need to be, but yes, perhaps it could be done. Stronger than the bloom? Never. Or is that who Sheila truly was? How long's the cycle been going for? Since the time of Sheila, so at least 4 or 5 centuries, if not longer. Okay. So then, I guess we'll talk to Ragman. I said talk to Ragman. Get your face out of mine. Well, that's disappointing. Alright, well, I think we are basically done with this area. Next time around, we'll go south. We'll chat with the people there. And then we'll go to either Little Nihalesh or the old slave blocks. I'm not sure which one first. Until then, have a great day. Bye.
Fine.
Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you spending the time and effort watching the videos I make. If you'd like to watch more, on the left there should be another video from this playlist. On the right there will be whatever YouTube recommends, and in the center there is a convenient subscribe button just in case you need it.